What is up, everyone? Welcome to my first ever dedicated Nintendo NX video. I've been really excited to do this one, and I think this is a perfect time to do this video because the hype is getting crazy now, or maybe even the lack of hype is getting crazy because the NX still has not been revealed. And of course, they're aiming for a March 27 release, so it's crazy that we haven't seen anything legit about the NX yet from Nintendo. Just wild. And like many other Nintendo fans, I am itching to see what the heck this crazy device is going to be. So this video is going to be a roundup of the latest rumours, but I'm not going to dwell too much on talking about the rumours because all of you watching probably know exactly all about the latest rumours. What I am going to do is give my opinions on the rumours and sort of chat about the things that I want to see in the console and the things that I think it needs to be successful and things that I just want personally in the next Nintendo console. So without further ado, feel free to minimize this video. It's just going to be me talking to the camera. I've got no footage or anything. It's just going to be my discussion and things like that. So strap in, sit back, relax, and enjoy my rambling about Nintendo's next console. So the first rumor, which is sort of the umbrella description of the whole thing, is the fact that this is going to be a handheld / home console hybrid with detachable controllers. Now, I know what a handheld is. I know what a home console is. I know what detachable controllers are, but what I cannot imagine is all of those three mashed together as a hybrid. And just like many other people, I just do not know what they are going to do to pull it off. I don't know what it'll be able to achieve at home. I don't know what it'll be able to achieve on the road, how many differences there are going to be. I can't even begin to imagine what it's going to look like. So right from the get-go, it's very difficult to judge this console because nobody knows exactly what it's going to be. Obviously, there are some people on the planet that know what it's going to be, but us normal civilians do not know what it's going to look like. There is just one piece of a sort of opinion that I have about this, because Nintendo have obviously chosen to go with a unique and an innovation attempt yet again. I really hope that the innovative streak in Nintendo's stride of designing this console, I really hope that doesn't interrupt the functionality of the system. So I hope that the home console space in Nintendo's machine does not suffer because of a gimmick. And I'm going to say gimmick lightly because if this handheld / detachable controller thing is at the core of the machine, if that's what the machine is all about, then it can't really be referred to as a gimmick, because the Wii U gamepad can be referred to as a gimmick because the Wii U is totally usable without the gamepad. I mean, it has to be, connected to the Wii U and things, but you can use the Pro Controller and pretty much ignore the functionality of the gamepad in lots of games. But if the NX is built from the ground up to be this hybrid console, then it's not going to be a gimmick. So I hope that fundamentally it is solid, really, really solid from the get-go. Otherwise, the things that us Nintendo fans want to see are obviously going to suffer. And what are those things? Those things are a solid console platform, a solid up-to-date console platform, a solid controller to play our favourite games, and of course, a whole host of fantastic first-party titles and decent enough third-party titles and games to warrant the purchase of the machine, and hopefully maybe even have that as the only next-gen system. But I think these days, to have just a Nintendo console as your only next-gen console, you're going to miss out somewhere along the lines, more substantially than if you chose to just have an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4 or whatever. But yeah, that's a lot of rambling on sort of the key to what the NX is going to be. I just hope that nothing suffers, and I hope that it's not too weird. I don't want anything too weird. Next up, a point that really excites me is the return of cartridges. Apparently, this system is going to use cartridges, which is great for many reasons. Firstly, no need for a disk drive, so you're minimizing moving parts, potentially minimizing all moving parts, except for possibly a fan, but again, who knows if it's even going to have a fan. So you're removing a lot of points of failure from the system, which is great. You're not relying on optical media, so in a sense, everything should be faster. It's not necessarily going to be a zero loading time system like older Nintendo consoles and older cartridge systems, because it really depends on how they utilize the system and what type of bandwidth the cartridge interface is going to have with the console, because a lot has changed since the N64 days. For example, it was possible to stream directly from the N64 cartridge. So when you jacked a cartridge into the system, that became part of the hardware. Whereas the PlayStation, on the other hand, you put the CD in, all of the data needed for that specific level was lifted off of the CD, loaded into memory, and then you played the game from memory. Next time it needed to reach something on the disc, you'd get another loading screen, or if it was something very small, it could potentially load it in the background. But I very much doubt that today's cartridges that are highly likely going to release with the NX, I highly doubt that they'll be able to stream constant data into the system without loading screens. But I don't know. That's going to be left to be decided, and it'll be interesting to see what they actually do with cartridges. If this is going to be a handheld system, it's very likely that we'll see sort of DS-style cartridges, which are more like sort of cards than cartridges. I very much doubt that we're going to see big, substantial grey plastic boxes. I think those days are definitely gone. But one thing I will say is a rumour that's floating around at the moment, apparently because of some order or something, apparently these carts are meant to be 32 gigs in size. And I've read a little bit of panic about this online. Just because the initial order of cartridges may or may not be 32 gigs, that doesn't mean that every single game will have to be 32 gigabytes. I think one of the big advantages to cartridges and flash memory and ROM storage is you can choose the capacity depending on what you're putting onto it. So the cost will depend on the size of the game, just like it did back in the day, although costs between a 32 gig and a 64 gig flash solution, it's not going to be an astronomical cost. But still, if a game is less than 32 gigs, it'll go onto a 32 gig cartridge. If a game is more than 32 gig, it'll go onto a 64 gig cartridge. I think there will be that flexibility to have different sized cartridges for different sized games. I don't think we have to worry about larger than 32 gig games coming to the NX just because of this small rumour that they've ordered a load of 32 gig cartridges. The next point I want to touch on yet again is the whole March 2017 thing. I touched on this briefly at the beginning of the video. March 2017 is not that far away at all. Nintendo need to release the NX pretty much now, or ASAP, in order to have enough time to build hype and to build recognition for the system before its release. Because that's one thing that Nintendo really, really need to get right this time around, is the whole advertising thing, the whole hype thing. People need to know what the NX is going to be if it's going to be successful. That's just a no-brainer. People didn't know what the Wii U was, and look how that ended. So it's not a lot of time between now and March 2017. So do I think there's going to be a delay? Well, apparently Nintendo have not hinted towards any kind of delay for the system, but I don't know. There's still plenty of time to delay the console, and we could see a delay. But if they're on track, they're on track, and maybe there are some rumours floating around that we'll get an NX reveal in the next 3 weeks, in early October or late October or whatever it is. So fingers crossed, let's just strap in and wait, because just like many other fans, I am itching to see what this console is going to be. Now, next up, I've got a list of specifications that is quite old. This rumour is quite old, but apparently it's listed specifications for a prototype model. So the prototype is apparently region-free, and apparently the NX is going to be region-free as well, which is very, very cool, especially considering the track record with Japanese Wii U games just not coming out over here in the PAL region or in the NTSC US region. So that'll be really cool if it is region-free. Next up, apparently it's going to have 32 gigs of storage internal. If it's using cartridges, then I don't know how much internal storage it's going to need. I've always kind of defended the Wii U and said, well, it's still heavily it relies on discs heavily. I don't really know how many Wii U owners purely download from the eShop, because all of the prices are astronomically more expensive on the eShop anyway. But if that's going to change, then the console really does need more internal storage, especially for, things like DLC and updates and applications. If they're going to do the whole NX experience better, they simply need more space for more things in the OS. So 32 gigs, I really hope it's more. And as much as I admire the fact that the Wii U has flash storage internally and does not have a hard drive, as much as I love flash storage, I would prefer to see a big chunky 500 gig or 1 terabyte hard drive in the system, or maybe some kind of hybrid thing, maybe 32 or 64 gigs of internal flash storage for the most commonly seeked applications and files, and then a big bulky back-end hard drive for all of your storage, your mass storage, and all of the stuff that's going to consume a lot of space. But we'll just wait and see what we get. I hope we get more than 32 gigs. And if not, I think Nintendo should think about releasing an official hard drive, because not all gamers are geeks, and not all gamers know about hardware and compatibility and things. And the whole adding an external hard drive thing to the Wii U is not as straightforward as some people would like, especially because it cannot power a portable 5400 RPM drive, little 2.5-inch drive. It needs to use a big desktop drive in most scenarios anyway. The Wii U can be a bit fussy with the drives that it uses. But yeah, I think Nintendo should make that clearer, because people do want more storage in this day and age. Apparently it's going to be a 6.2-inch 720p multi-touchscreen, which is all good by me. If it's going to have some kind of screen somewhere, then it's great that it's now going to be multi-touch. That's the one biggest thing that the Wii U screen is missing. I assume the whole display will be of higher quality than the gamepad display anyway. The gamepad display is not too bad at all. It's just, if there is anything, there's a lot of difference between the TV and the gamepad display in terms of vibrance and colours. And yeah, I just think an overall updated display would be nice. Size, resolution, it could be anything at this point, who the heck knows, but multi-touch would be sweet. Apparently the NX is going to have a docking station with 2 USB ports, so that kind of implies that the handheld will be docked into the docking station when it is a home console, and that will give you your USB ports and potentially more home console-y type things. Maybe a gigabit Ethernet port, that would be sweet, because that's something that I want on board. I don't want to dedicate a USB port for Ethernet like you have to do with the Wii U. But if it's a docking station, that would make a lot of sense, because you'd take the console out to the docking station. That would strip away all of the home console kind of features. Maybe if it's got a proprietary connector or whatever, so the HDMI and everything could be on the dock. And then you take it with you, but then that still leaves the controller scenario fairly confusing, so who the heck knows? And of course, if it's the docking station and you dock the handheld into the station, that's obviously not your controller, so is the screen now not on the controller? The screen is now on the dock, which could well be in your TV cabinet or whatever. That's where the confusion hits for me, folks. I'm not 100% sure at all what the heck that's going to be. Apparently, graphically, it's going to have an NVIDIA Tegra X2 powered graphics chip, which of course uses the latest and greatest NVIDIA Pascal technology, the Pascal series of GPUs, just like the 1060, the 1070, the 1080, which would be really sweet. But again, with consoles, especially Nintendo consoles, none of that really makes much of a difference and matters to the end consumer or the gamer. It's all about optimization, how easy the system is to program for, and the tools that the developers have from Nintendo in order to make games. That's how we'll get games. The games will look great anyway, because games to this day still look great on the Wii U. But if it has got some nice beefy NVIDIA hardware under the hood for graphics, that would be really sweet, because I think this thing needs all the spec it can get to compete in this day and age. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish it didn't come down to specs, but these days, apparently, it's just a big thing. Everyone seems to talk about it. Apparently, the overall graphical capabilities are going to be somewhere between the PS3 and PS4. I have no idea how much truth this is going to be in, how much truth is going to be in this point. You can measure it in so many different ways. Graphical capabilities is a very vague statement, because you've got to take into account what is the frame rate that they are aiming for in certain games, and of course what resolution are those games running at. All of that determines the speed in which the game can run and how much juicy graphical goodness the console has left to push out. So yeah, that's also up in the air, and I don't really care about those kind of statements. I will wait and see what it is like upon release. And anyway, all the Nintendo games are going to look great regardless. We've heard a couple of apparent leaks about frame rate and resolution. So apparently the system will support 4K at 60 FPS for video streaming, which is probably pretty much a given. It will be powerful enough to stream 4K, and it'll have the latest HDMI and everything to enable 4K, which will be really cool. But then where that starts to get a little bit odd is it says gameplay graphics at 900p 60 FPS. So that's kind of like quite a big difference. Obviously, if they're aiming for that solid 60 FPS in all games, then maybe 900p is kind of okay, but then that's a step down because the majority of Wii U games run at a solid 1080p and still look really great in terms of graphical content. So I kind of find that hard to believe, and where the heck have these statements come from anyway, so God knows. Apparently the controller is going to use a split D-pad. For those of you who don't know what that means, Nintendo have always had that solid D-pad that they've had ever since the NES, and it is a legendary D-pad. It is so nice to use. And a split D-pad is what you see on the PlayStation controllers, where they're more sort of separate buttons with, you know, plastic in between, as opposed to a solid D-pad. I don't know what Nintendo's reasoning would be to change their, 30-year proven D-pad. But if they want to change it for something that they think is better, then they're all about innovation and making things better. So as long as it still controls and plays well, that would be cool. However, I do not have a single problem with the Nintendo D-pad, and neither does anybody else. It is a great interface. It is a great button on their controllers. It always has been, and it always will be. Next up is a particularly boring rumor. The controller is apparently meant to have a share button. I think that's a given these days. And apparently, rumored box content includes the Nintendo NX console, game controller, HDMI cable, and sensor bar. Now, if the NX is truly not a successor to the Wii U, or DS, or any of the existing Nintendo products, if it is totally its own beast, and that kind of says it's not going to have backwards compatibility, which is arguably not that important anyway, considering how much the Wii U flopped and how much software is floating around out there. But if it does have a sensor bar, that's going to be a little weird, because does it need one? If it does have a sensor bar and does have backwards compatibility, it's not really a true brand new concept, because it'll still have some kind of Wii software in there somewhere for that interface with the sensor bar. And then, does the sensor bar come into the handheld console portion, or will backwards compatibility only work while it's in home console docked mode? Who the heck knows? I can't see it coming with a sensor bar. I'd be pretty shocked. But then again, we've had sensor bar for the two past Nintendo consoles. Maybe it's just a sort of staple thing now. And of course, if they are selling Wii games in the virtual console, if we are going to have a virtual console, then you'll need a sensor bar. So, lots of ifs and lots of buts. Who the heck knows? And I'm getting a bit warm. It's time to take my jacket off so that I can talk about the more exciting points, to me at least, which are the things that I want to see from the NX. Now I'm going to read these points exactly how I've written them. I want the NX to be able to function as a normal console regardless of gimmicks. And I know I touched upon this earlier, but again, what I mean is I do not want any sacrifice to normal console operation. Sit on the couch, grab a controller, put in a brilliant game, and have a normal, fun gaming experience. I don't want any weirdness to come in the way. I'm quite scared about that in a way. It could well be a fantastic hybrid system, but is it putting too many eggs into one basket? Is something truly that great if it is trying to be too many things at one time? It's no secret that around the house, if any two gadgets try and combine together, it's no secret that they are inferior to their separate entity counterparts. For instance, the NX, if you take the handheld portion on the road, if you happen to drop it when you're out and about, does that mean that you can't play your home console? Do you lose your handheld functionality out and about and at home? It's kind of weird, and I want a normal home console to function fantastically regardless of what the heck is going on with this handheld thing, so I really hope that happens. The next thing I want is a solid competitive controller, because if it is going to be a hybrid system that works both at home and away from home and out and about, handheld or whatever the heck, it's likely that the controller, just look at even the gamepad and, look at the DS, they're not substantial, awesome controllers like the PS4 and Xbox One. Game controllers over the last 30 years since the NES have evolved from just a rectangle with spiky corners, and they've got smoother, they've got more features, they're more ergonomic, they're easier to hold, they're more comfortable, and every generation the controllers get better and better, and now the controllers feel and function so damn good. I like the Pro Controller, it's nearly there, but I'd like to see the NX with a proper bloody controller. Is that too much to ask? I mean, we've coped with the Wii remotes. We've coped with the gamepad. I cope with that fine. But now, after all of that, I just want a normal, nice controller. And I don't know if we're going to get it. The next one is potentially the most important thing that the NX needs if it's going to survive. It needs a good bloody name, and it needs good marketing to back up that name. The Wii U was the most stupid idea in terms of naming and marketing strategies and everything. If you guys want to hear more, type in Wii U to my channel. I've got an entire video, it's a little bit old now, but I've got a whole video ranting about why Wii U is such a rubbish name and how that is the main reason why the console has been so badly hurt. People just did not know it was a different console to the Wii. They thought it was a gamepad accessory for the Wii. The NX needs to come in with a brand new, fresh name, competitive name that makes people go, whoa. And it needs to have awesome TV campaigns, online stuff, magazines, posters, stuff everywhere, just to say this is the NX, look out, this thing is coming, and it is going to be absolutely brutal and brilliant, dominating, buy it for your living room. It's not a Wii. It needs a good name. The next point is controversial, and I'll say, before I mention this next point, I'll say one thing. I'm a big fan of the Wii U. I'm a big fan of the Wii. They are some of the best, those consoles are home to some of the best games that have ever come out. Some of the best games in the world. But I think for the NX to succeed, they need to drop all things Wii. They need to completely ignore the Wii. And I am one to say, yes, backwards compatibility is fantastic, but you know what? I think they should ditch the Wii remotes, ditch the sensor bar, ditch the virtual console, ditch the Wii U stuff. I think they should ditch anything associated with Wii. They should ditch the exercise stuff and everything. It should just all change. All the Wii stuff out the window, that's been and gone. It worked fantastically for almost a decade, and it is about time that it now left, because I think that anyone that still has an interest in the Wii and the Wii stuff, I think those people own a Wii U, and I think the release of the NX will not warrant those people getting rid of their Wii U. So I think there is still firm Wii-ness in the market, because they say they're going to... Sorry folks, I ran out of space on my camera there for a second. What was I saying? Yes, they say they're going to support the Wii U into the launch of the NX, which is obviously quite common for the previous consoles to continue to be supported, at least to some degree, for at least a couple of years after the next gen ones have come out. But because of that reason, I think Nintendo can get away with ditching all things Wii, and I really think it will help with the previous point I mentioned, the separation from the Wii brand, going back to their roots, being truly Nintendo, being truly innovative, and just coming out with a brand new sort of brand that is not Wii related. And for that, bye-bye nunchucks, bye-bye Wii Fit boards, it's all done and dusted now. As I say, I'm a big Nintendo fan, but it's about time all that just went away, I think. Obviously, one of the big things that I want to see is third-party support. Now, I'm not a delusional fanboy. I'm not saying that the NX, or whatever it's going to be called, is going to be the latest and greatest home to all of the AAA titles. I know that that's not going to be the case. And over the years, there has often been an inferior version of a multi-platform game on a Nintendo console. Not always the case, but that's sometimes the case. And I think that even if third-party support is going to be as good as it's going to get with the NX, if it's going to be great and 10 times better than the Wii U, I don't think it'll ever be the go-to platform for those third-party games. But if you buy the NX because you're a Nintendo fan and you want the exclusive Nintendo titles, which is obviously why they've shifted all of these Wii U units, they 10 or 12 million or however many they've sold those because of exclusives. And what will drive the NX to sell better is if people can buy it for the exclusives, but also feel that it's a better investment because they can also go out and buy a third-party game that's pretty good as well if they want to. Now, if the NX is capable enough, it could get... If it's capable enough and easy enough to program for, and especially if it's an x86 architecture, which I have no idea if it's going to be, but if it is, we will no doubt see almost identical great ports to the NX, which will be great. But just because Nintendo have got so much catching up to do with their online features, with their entire with their entire ecosystem of gaming in general, they've got so much catching up to do that I don't think a Nintendo console will ever be the platform of choice for your COD gamers or your GTA gamers. But better third-party support, yes please. The next point is Nintendo need to improve, as I just mentioned, their entire presence in the modern world, mainly including the speed of their systems in terms of software and navigation and updates, as well as any kind of interaction with online functionality. They need to streamline their services, and of course if they do ditch things all Wii, we'll be saying goodbye to Mii's and Miiverse, sorry, not Weverse. They have a chance to reinvent their entire online space and reinvent the way in which Nintendo gamers interact with each other via the internet through their consoles. This is a great opportunity for Nintendo to do that, and it's time that they caught up and had as much functionality as the competitors, as Sony and Microsoft. And if we have to pay for the Nintendo Online service to make that happen, then I don't mind. I think it's cool that the Wii U Nintendo network is free. I think that's very cool, but there is no doubt that there is so much less functionality in it, and it's just not as easy to use. It's slower, it's not polished, and it is bloated. It is bloated on the Wii U, having 3 separate places in which you can manage your friends and do different things. So in my friends list, I can view what friends are online and what they're doing, but I can't accept friend requests. If I want to accept friend requests, then I have to go onto Miiverse, which is a separate application. All these things, they just need to have one solid place, and it needs to have full online interaction. It's 2016 and this will be released in 2017. It needs to have full online interaction built into the core of the system that can interact with the system at its base level, and ultimately the end user at their base level as well. And last up is not necessarily something that I think is going to help sell more NX systems. This is purely something that I want to see, just for my own gaming reasons and opinions. But I want to see an open world, non-linear, story-driven 3D Mario game, similar to Mario 64 or Super Mario Sunshine. I don't own Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U, and the reason I don't is because it was really expensive for a very long time, but of course now you can get it on Nintendo Selects for £17. And I still haven't picked it up because it's just a linear game. It's a 3D version of run through the level and jump on the flagpole. I want Mario 64 2. I really do. I think that would be brilliant. But that's just my own little thing that I thought I'd mention in this video, something to throw in at the end here. So, after all of that rambling, we are down to the final thoughts. And this is a big one that took me a while to write down. Final thoughts. This is a chance for Nintendo to reinvent themselves in the home console market. The Wii U messed up, but fans are still loyal and happy to adopt a new platform. AKA, if Nintendo mess up again, they may well lose even more. Well, of course, they will lose more Steam power, but they will lose what is most important to them, and that is their loyal customers. The Wii U is a fantastic machine for loads of reasons, but nobody can deny that Nintendo messed up. But still, regardless of the fact that they've messed up, fans are still loyal and are totally willing to adopt a new platform. So this is a chance for Nintendo to wipe the slate clean, reinvent themselves in the home console market, tackle all of that online stuff I was saying, make the system feel like a true 21st century platform for gaming with brilliant sharing capabilities, interaction, blah blah blah. Modernize the system, modernize the Nintendo gameplay platform experience, and everyone will be happy. And next up is a really interesting point, and this is my last point. Dramatically new hardware, which is of course what we suspect the NX is going to be. Dramatically new hardware needs good, dramatically different software that is playable by all and has lasting appeal just like any other game. What do I mean by that? We have to look at the Wii U to understand that point fully. I mean that the gamepad came out and it was a new thing that worked brilliantly for a few games. But then the gamepad became a hindrance. Developers would have to do something extra for the Wii U version because it had the gamepad, and because there was a certain amount of gimmicky nature to the gamepad, the stuff that you used the gamepad for was often much less relevant than the rest of the game and just didn't need to be there, and quite frankly, I am going to say it, was often a waste of time. Yes, some of it was cool, and one game that I can think of in particular that uses the gamepad fantastically is Lego City Undercover. Does a lot with the gamepad, but still, even in that game, a lot of it was unnecessary, and the hardware was dramatically different, and obviously it's a massive expense to have a gamepad, a game controller with a giant screen in it, coming with its own cradle and its own charger. It's a massive expense. So that has to mean that they can earn more money by having that gamepad, which was not the case for the Wii U. The gamepad was just an extra gimmick by the end, and it didn't succeed in the way Nintendo thought it was going to. So the NX is obviously going to be very different from a hardware perspective. So the software, the games themselves, need to translate and perfectly lay even on all of those hardware differences and to make sense from every angle on that hardware in order to make it justifiable for releasing that different hardware in the first place. AKA, if they can't think of any good stuff to do in games that is good for that new hardware, it was pointless to release that new innovative hardware in the first place. They should have just made a normal console. And that is what they're going to have to do. The NX, if it is brilliantly designed and a fantastically innovative piece of hardware, no matter how cool it is, the games have to make sense on that platform. So that is that. They are my thoughts. I cannot wait until the NX comes out. I cannot wait until it's revealed. Rest assured, you guys will be seeing an unboxing as soon as it comes out. I've got money set aside in my Geek Fund ready to spend on it, and a couple of launch games and some accessories and things. And I'm going to jump on the NX hype instantly, and I really can't wait to check it out. So thank you for watching. Please share your opinions down below, and as always, I will see you in the next video.